They're going to show us how to read it. Well, I'm getting applause here. Must be doing well. You want to know, you got to know where you stack up. You might not love the answer. These guys are here to give you some tough love for your own good because they love you. By the end of this, let's make a little promise. You'll know what benchmarking can actually tell you, where the biggest gaps are showing up between comparable farms, and most importantly, which number you need to go find first on your own operation. This is a continuation of Know Your Numbers Part 1. This isn't a public ranking. Nobody here is going to get graded. The benchmark is here to show you where the next question starts. So this is the middle section of a 3-part Know Your Number series with MNP. In session 1, we got your books in order with Rochelle and Dean. Today, we're comparing the numbers, and then on September 22nd, we're taking the next conversation to the next level. Mike Pommier, the wizard, the agronomy wizard, is going to be breaking it down by zone. We're going to get right down to the plant, to the soil, to the acre. And Travis was recently at a field day held at Aberhart Farms, gave us some hard-hitting numbers where he made people guess certain things, and the guesses were all over the map. And he showed the comparison, and the room was stopping guessing. We were in the know. He is a farm management consultant with MNP. He started out preparing financial statements, but that was not his jam, folks. That was not his jam. That was not his calling. That was not his purpose. He's moved over to the creative side of benchmarking. And accounting is no longer boring for him. Travis, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me on.
Love it. This is going to be a banger.
Should
and then
be.
Dean Klippenstine, legend in his own mind. He's out at the lake. He's having a great time. He's relaxed. He's smart as a whip. He's going to lay it down today. Dean, you got some tough love for us?
Well, Dan, I'll tell you what, I'm just glad that I've finally got all the beer cans cleaned up off the grass that Travis and his buddies left at our ag team party out here last week. So, yeah, I'm glad we didn't host it on Friday morning.
Well, if we were benchmarking the year that you partied the hardest, it might be 99 or it might be 2026. We don't know, but we'll have to go way back for the data. And it's funny because we were going to talk about the most profitable year versus the least profitable year. And Travis is going to lay that down for us. And Dean was saying, well, we have to really go back in time because I was saying the least profitable year really isn't that bad, but let's get into it. So much to reveal. Travis, what does benchmarking actually tell a farmer?
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't necessarily like it because it definitely shows them the truth to how they're sitting compared to their peers. It's really a tool to start helping you ask questions about your business, but it ultimately just shows you what is the art of the possible. So, you might think you're doing a great job in your area, but you don't have anybody to compare to, or you might have the coffee room chat to talk about, and usually yields or, some fake prices. And you always have that one guy that, if you grew 40 bushel canola, they grew 42, and you don't actually know what actually is going on there. So the benchmark just allows us to really compare the art of the possible, trying our best to keep we use MNP financials, trying to be the most similar that they can be and most comparable. So getting ourselves an actual spot on a ranking to see how the farm's doing compared to others. Dean has a pretty good analogy with car dealerships. I don't know if you want to talk about that, Dean.
No, you go ahead, big fella. See if you.
You're not going to change our oil today, Dean? You're not going to talk about oil changes?
Oh, I'm going to talk about everything, Dan.
Yeah, so I heard this a lot, I guess. So Dean's analogy is just if you have two car dealerships running in two different towns, and they're both super profitable dealerships, and they're doing oil changes, just a simple business. One business might be doing 10 oil changes a day, and the other one might be doing 15 oil changes a day. If they don't talk to each other and they don't actually compare their numbers, they're both profitable. They both think that they're doing a really good job, but dealership A doesn't know that they could be doing 15 without actually seeing that or looking at those other numbers. So really, that's what we're trying to do with the benchmark here, is actually show guys, okay, how are we actually doing and what can we actually improve? The benchmark isn't going to be there to give answers. It's going to be there to, develop that many more questions or make guys start thinking about their operations more in depth, kind of trying to decide what should we change or what can we change. That's really what it's there for.
We're going to keep going with the hard-hitting questions here, but I want to pose it to the audience. Remember last time we were talking about somebody was questioning, how much all this costs. You have free advice from the best in the industry here today. And this information is incredibly valuable for you to run your farm. So put your questions in the chat. These guys are going to answer them for the next hour free of charge, right, Dean?
Absolutely. And this is the start of the journey, not the end, right? So if you compare it, if your daughter's the fastest soccer player in Moose Jaw, and I don't know what the measurement for speed on soccer players is, but if you compare it to the NFL Combine, it's how fast you run the 40. If you don't know what fast is, how do you know what the success rate, what your success is being measured against? And so that doesn't tell you what you need to do to change. It takes a pile of work and a pile of effort, and that's why Trav talks about his energetic clients that want to improve. It's significant effort to march towards a constant and steady improvement. And it's not easy, but it's very important. And we see the numbers. We see the results of constant improvement over a decade versus complacency. And it would knock you off your chair if you saw the differences, especially if you do it over an extended period of time.
You were sounding a little bit like Winston Churchill there for a moment, Dean, which I liked. I liked it. Travis, why doesn't acreage or like number of X9s matter as much as it might look from the road?
Yeah, I think there's a big conception of you can see from the road what a farm's worth or what they're making, and once you actually get down into the details and the benchmark, it's we see it all the time where there's farms farming right beside each other and just drastically different numbers from top line revenue all the way down to the bottom line, what they have in their costs, what they're doing. And it actually just it's kind of mind blowing in the sense of you look at one financial, you look at the other, and then all of a sudden that they're neighbors, and it's just what is going on? Like how is it so different farm to farm? And really that's kind of the job of the benchmark is how can we dive into those areas, help those farms that maybe aren't doing as good, but help them, ask different questions, get them thinking about their business on different changes that they could make. And honestly, those are the hardest conversations to have because usually those guys aren't really wanting help. And it comes up with excuses of, we didn't get rain or we're in a different soil zone or, we can't do this because of X. And we just continuously see all those excuses coming out with the farms that need to improve. And then it's the complete opposite when we get into a room with the great farms where those are actually pretty tough meetings too, because it's they're always looking to learn. They're never going to tell you what they're doing right. They're always going to be, we need to do something better. What should we be doing better? And they're at the top. It's hard to give those farms advice because they're doing all the small things right. But it's from the bottom side, it's excuses and we can't get through to those. And then from the top end, it's always what can we do to improve, which it's just two different mentalities in the room when you're looking at that.
Hey, I thought I was going to get the silver bullet today, guys. I want my money back.
Yeah, there's no silver bullet. That's for sure.
There's no silver bullet?
Unfortunately not, Dan.
Did you guys hear that? But I want to say, and the differences are actually way bigger than you think when you add up those small incremental improvements. I wonder, when did you guys start collecting the data that you're working with, Travis? And we'd love to go back earlier, but
yeah, the first year that we really got honed in on the benchmarking was in 2019 is when we finally got our larger data set. I believe Dean and the crew was working on benchmarking a little bit earlier than that, just didn't have the same size of numbers. So it was a little bit smaller and we kind of had an idea of our area in, the South Sask region, but it wasn't as solid of numbers as what it is now. And we kind of have those back in 2019.
Lots of our comparisons back then were more anecdotal, Dan. We knew what our great clients were doing. We knew what some other ones off the top of our head were doing, but it's really Peter Manis, probably Darcy Byers and Travis Gerrard who really took it to the next level and made it. And I tell them, I said, every year we do a database. Every year we do the database. It's the worst and best benchmarking we'll ever do. Because next year we learn more and we understand more. and it constantly, we're on this journey together.
You're so optimistic. I love it. Hey, for the folks in the audience, put it in the chat. Since 2019,
Yeah.
what do you think was the most profitable year since 2019? Put it in the chat. I want to put it in the chat now. Go ahead and put it in the chat. We'll wait. What do you say to the farmers? There's a lot of, I think, resistance to benchmark, and I think you uncovered it earlier that maybe to see where we're at would hurt a bit, and you were using language there that probably makes us face down some of those things we should improve, which isn't always easy, but what you measure will improve. But what do you say to the producer that says, well, my area is different. You can't benchmark what I'm doing?
Yeah, I think it's always a tough one. I think the way we've developed the benchmark now, it's become a lot easier to help with that question because 3 years ago we were just in all of South Sask. So I was comparing the whole southeast corner, and I would agree with that statement of we can't benchmark my area because I'm in different soil, different things. Now we've developed it so far that you have the whole South Sask region. You have risk areas based off of the Saskatchewan crop insurance areas. Are those perfect? No, but they're going to get you a pretty good idea. And then last year we came out with RM areas now in Saskatchewan. So we're getting pretty fine-tuned into what those areas are. And any meeting that I go into, I try to give the client, okay, do you want to be in this area or do you want to be in a different area? And really, it's going to be a more condensed area now, and we can only go down so far. But then the other thing is too, there's always going to be other metrics of like, okay, do you want to see based off of acre size then? Are you in that 3,000 to 6,000 acre size? Or are you in the 6,000 to 9,000 acre size? So there's so many different ways that we can look at the benchmark now, and we have all those options that it's pretty tough to say that there's not a category that is meaningful to those farms. And if that is the case, it's probably that they don't want to see the hard reality of where their farm actually sits.
And remember, Dan, we know there's anomalies. Trav gets a hailstorm that his buddy 4 miles north doesn't get. There's a rain. Trav catches a rain that his other buddy didn't catch, and there's 25 bushel difference on canola. But that's why we never really judge too much on one single year. One of the main categories we look at is 5-year benchmark, because that really stands the test of time and takes those anomalies out. But that's where when we go into stage 3 of I don't know how many of benchmarking, eventually we'll want to really understand how much gross margin did we achieve out of the maximum potential to that acre. But that's AI. That's a post Dan Aberhart, post Dean Klippenstine achievement. Travel will continue on marching towards that.
Again, such an optimist.
Yeah, I think
we had a couple folks put into the chat here. Profitability, you're dead right. 21, 22. Well, and yield 2025. Thank you, Rachel. But would it be crazy? The number that you're going to give, would it be crazy to know how many farms were profitable? And we're not talking about a small data set. This is correct me if I'm wrong, this is the most comprehensive data set of its kind. I don't know about the world, but certainly Western Canada.
It's got a lot of farms in it. To give you the correct answer on that, it's just under 1,500 farms, and we're looking at just under 8.5 million acres to compare to. So
no big deal.
About 10% of cultivated acres in the prairies here.
And Alberta, how many of those farms were profitable in the best year, which was 22?
Yes, it was 2022. So 95% of those farms were profitable and 5% were losing money, which is a pretty big number. And I think it's kind of obvious. We went through a really good time there in COVID, and I think that just stands out that much more. Are you going to do the most profitable, least profitable, or can I give some numbers on what those other years look like?
Cole McMahon's popping off in the chat. You mentioned 3,000 to 6,000 acres and 6,000 to 9,000 acres differently. Do you separate out those farm sizes in your data because the benchmarks change?
No, I don't think we separate. Well, I think there's a difference in those acre sizes. I guess the way we separate the data is just, we tried to do acre sizes and we've changed it a couple times. Right now we're on the 0 to 3,000, 3 to 6,000, 6 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 15, and then 15 plus. And I'm not sure they're like, we wanted to separate it out to look at LPM more so of what are guys hitting on those acre sizes. I don't think there's like a magic bullet to that, to why we chose those. I think it was just more so trying to get grouping sizes with the right amount of farms in them so that we can actually look at the data in there.
Second time, there's no magic bullet.
No, there's no.
But we've got the data. The Trav and the crew have got the data so that you can cut and slice and dice it different ways. And those are great discussions. That's why and this is not a sales pitch, but the exercise is actually an interactive one. It's not I get my report and I go study it in my den, right? It's an interactive report, asking and learning and inquisitive, right? Trav always walks out of these things with more questions than he does answers.
Mario, you have your hand up. Did you want to talk, or were you just maybe looking for the TV remote? But if you want to talk, if you're that extroverted, I will bring you on live. Lots of people just hit the button by accident, but I appreciate the enthusiasm. If you want to talk, we'll let you talk. But what was what was the year that was the least profitable since 2000?
We got over the last time you didn't let me talk when I put my hand up.
Well, there's a reason. There's a reason. I will never live down the fact that I didn't respond to Dean's enthusiastic overtures to speak on a previous webinar. What year was the least profitable year since 2019? And you'll be shocked and awed by what percentage of farms were profitable that year. Mario says, sorry, didn't realize my hand was up. That was a close call. You were almost live on the internet, man. Anything could have happened. But you're marked safe on Facebook. No animals were harmed in the making of this live briefing. Trevor Spruill saying 2025 for the least profitable year. Put your comments into the chat. We're learning together.
And while they're going through that, Dan, remember that, folks, this is people who already have the desire and want to be the significant portion, if not 90 to 95%, would be existing MNP clients who want to see their numbers and want to improve. So this is already a pretty elite group of agriculture producers. And the guys and gals in this producer group, that really shows the difference. When you took it to the broader selection of the industry, these numbers would be even more significant.
Keenan Amy is asking, good morning, Keenan. Good to see you virtually. What is the top 10% of farmers' net margin? And what is their total per acre spend?
Trav, talk about a little bit about land building and finance and how that can differ a bit.
Yeah, so Dean doesn't like going down to the bottom line of, I'm assuming when you say net margin, you're talking earnings from operation, which we have been talking about earnings from operation on these percentages here of who's made money versus lost money. But when we actually do the benchmark, we categorize it off of contribution margin. So in the previous podcast, we kind of went through that. I'm just going to quickly touch on it. So it's gross revenue, just yield times price, add in your crop insurance, take off your production expenses. So production expenses, chem, fert, seed, and crop insurance. That gets us our gross margin. Then looking at labor, power, machinery, really that's just the cost to get the job done. So everything it takes to put the crop in the ground, maintain it throughout the year, get it off. Once we get to that stage of the farm, everybody is comparable to that point. So that's what we call contribution margin. Take your gross margin, take off labor, power, machinery. At contribution margin, everybody is comparable. Once we get down into land building and finance, really it turns into age, equity, and wealth of the farm. So the example there would be if I fully inherit a farm and Dean's farming and he has to go rent out a 5,000 acre farm, both of us can be doing a really good job at farming. But if I don't have any land building finance costs, I just pay my property taxes and Dean has to pay $150 of rent, and we're making, he's making $100 an acre less than I am. really not comparable just because of the age, equity, and wealth of the farm. I don't have to pay land rent. Dean has to. We can't yell at Dean and say, hey, well, go be like Travis and not pay land rent. Just it's the where the farm is at on that spot. So we like looking at it based off of contribution margin. And that's why, is just because we can see so many differences in the land billing finance category there.
We can't yell at Dean.
The other way to spin that is make sure you charge family-owned land. Put a rent charge in there if you want to do back of the napkin comparisons. Then bottom line, you've got that equity factor that Trav talked about adjusted. But in our numbers, we don't put in a pseudo rent for the family-owned land, so we have to do it at contribution margin. But Trav has all the net margin numbers also, obviously.
Yeah, I think when you talk to a professional, there's probably all kinds of little things that get adjusted that you're doing, farmer math on, which we tend to do. But did that answer your question, Keenan? Is there anything else we can add for that? Lars was saying, too bad the data doesn't go back to the early 2000s or 1990s. And yeah, I mean, we were talking about how, Dean, you didn't farm some land that was free, and you wish you had done it 5 years earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the target, just to go down, and it's I don't know who the person on the chat was who started this, but it's their fault we're going down memory lane. Yeah. When we had our FMC Farm Management Consulting Group, our benchmark target gross margins in the early 2000s were $100 to $150 an acre gross margin targets. Right? We wouldn't have a single farm in Western Canada make money at $150 gross margins, or an awful short list of them. And so, yeah, I wish we had that too. And just email Travis and yell at him and tell him to get the troops at MNP to garner up some AI power and get that rolling.
Finally, we get to yell at somebody. Okay, so what year was the least profitable?
Dan, I'm just gonna answer Keenan's question in more detail here, quick. So to give him an answer on what are the net margins, so earnings from operation, it's hard when you're this dove into the benchmark to give an actual answer on that. So I could give an average of the whole Western Canada prairies, but that's not a very good answer. So I'm going to break it down into a couple different regions for them. So earnings from operation from our best guys in different regions so from the top to the bottom, we had North Sask last year in 2025 was about $237 an acre. These are our top 25 farms in the benchmark. South Sask was $235 an acre. Central Alberta was about $180 an acre. Then we had Manitoba at $148, and we had Cyprus. Their benchmark numbers were at $111. So a drastic difference there, and that's why it's so hard to, when you're on a podcast like this where guys are, what are these numbers? Well, every region and every different area is so drastically different. We went from Cyprus being at $111 an acre benchmark earnings from operation up to North Sask being $237. So it is hard to be super specific on that.
Ryan Bonnet is saying, always love seeing your guys' benchmark data. Keep up the great work, MNP. Thank you, Ryan. Harry Siemens has a great question. I appreciate this question, Harry, because maybe not everybody really is oriented here. In general terms, is benchmarking comparing? What does benchmarking compare, and comparing to whom? Maybe we should have started there.
Yeah. So is benchmarking comparing? I think really it kind of is it's like a report card to kind of see how we're sitting compared to our peers. It gives us a good idea of how we're compared to people in the area, people with different acre sizes, so many different things. What does benchmarking all compare? I think that evolves every year. We've kind of gone, we're pretty simple on the main metrics of gross revenue, production expenses, gross margin. Our main key performance indicators is where we started. Now we're down to the level of, production expenses detailed out of fertilizer, chemical, seed, crop insurance. And then we also have a breakdown of labor, power, machinery. So our fuel costs, our repair costs, all those different categories. I think in the future here, it's just going to keep getting broke down further. I know we always talk about this, like the more you start to learn in this, the crazier you're just going to keep on going deeper and deeper, because the more you look at this, the more questions you have as to why are these numbers sitting the way they are. So,
and remember, the benchmarking is just a concept. It's not tied to accounting, or it's not tied to financial necessarily. We started with financial because that's the information in front of us. But then we're going to get more granular, the industry, right? Some of our higher end producers measure fill times. They're benchmarking fill times. They're benchmarking idle times between they got 6 combines in the field or 5 combines in the field, and they benchmark each combine against the other drivers as far as downtime, idle time, average speed, bushels per hour thrown out the back end, whatever. This is not, MNP does not have the wholly owned rights to benchmarking the concept. This has been used everything from McDonald's franchises to Ford dealers to Subway owners. They get together and compare in comparable businesses. But that's why we need a volume, and you can't compare a dairy farm, and we have dairy benchmark, but you can't compare a dairy farm in Ontario to a lentil farm in Rollo, right? That doesn't make any sense. And so you need comparable businesses in comparable areas to learn off each other. Great question, Harry.
It is a great question, Harry, and I learned something every time Harry asks a question. He's been in the business. We did a podcast with Harry recently, and he's a legend. You should check it out. He's teaching me all the time. So Lars Rogers is the one that took us back, and he's saying, Dean, weren't you doing benchmarks way back for Rob's groups?
Yes, we were, but on a really small scale and not in an organized data fashion.
Mm-hmm.
More one-off anecdotal, or not anecdotal. It was more one-off mini projects. So that's where Trav, Darcy Byers, and Peter Manis, and who else is integral in that, Trav? I don't want to make sure I'm leaving anybody out, but they really turned it to the corner to be the robust beast that it is today.
Yeah.
Jade Marshall would have been a big one out in Alberta. Nicole DeZumba from Cyprus, really working on that. Michael Berezny up in North Sask. Sorry if I screwed up any last names there.
Well, hey, it's all 3-chord rock. We're standing on the shoulders of giants. Many have come before us and shall go after us, if I might say so. But 2022, what I found interesting was there was a shocking number around how many farms are profitable, Travis.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 2024 was the least profitable year. I was testing you there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know what I'm supposed to talk to you there, but you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2024, we've seen across the prairies again, we've seen that being the least profitable year, where we've seen 58% of farms made money and 42% of farms lost money in that. I think really what caught up there was just that's where we really started to see farms that mismanaged their costs. They couldn't bring their costs back down to what revenue had come down. We've seen that exponential spike in revenue through COVID there, and then all of a sudden when the costs climbed up to where they could be, and then all of a sudden the revenue fell out from underneath them, they weren't able to match that and kind of got caught. So yeah, we've seen 58% of farms lose or make money, 42 lose money. I can maybe just quickly run through what the other years were here. So in 2019, we see 67% of farms make money, 33% lost money. In 2020, we've seen 87% of farms make money and 13 lose money. So a pretty good year in 2020. 21 was 90% made money, 10% lost. So another really good year. 22 was 95 and 5. 23, we've seen 74% of farms make money and 26 lose money. That was 23. 24 was 58% made money, 42% lost. And then 2025, this is what I made everybody guess at. It's Aberhart's there. In 2025, we've seen 72% of farms make money and 28% lose money. So everybody thinks that 25 was such a bad year, but in the grand scheme of things, since we've been looking at this data, it actually wasn't that bad. It really came down to marketing, because we did see some pretty big yields come out of 2025.
And we'll put those numbers in the chat so no one has to try to remember and follow what Travis said.
Better yet, I'll send you the recording of Travis performing at the field day, and he's moving around and he's going here and there and he's asking questions. He's engaging the crowd, and he's got charts. I didn't allow any PowerPoint. I banned PowerPoints from the session here in order to keep the energy high, but you can see them on YouTube. So, there you went. I can put them right in the chat there. You can see it live. So I wanted to ask the audience, before I get some of these comments, because the chat's popping off, Gross margin, baby. Oh, we love the gross margin. Get your gross margin. So what is the gross margin difference between between the benchmark farms and the average farms? Just the average farms, not the worst farms. We're not even going to go there. So guess this, because the answers will shock you coming up soon on Growing the Future. Maybe even in this hour if we get to it. Lars Rogers is saying, love the benchmark concept. I really hope the data set keeps growing. Good work, MNP. Ryan Bonnet is saying, oh, Ryan, whew, hard hitting. What are the top 3 items / actions you guys usually recommend to farmers to improve profitability? Please be specific. No, it depends. It depends. It depends.
Okay, I'll take that because that's what old guys do, Dan.
Okay.
Number 1 is crop selection, right? The late adopters to canola made less money than the people who. Now, there's obviously the bleeding edge, but number 1 is picking the right crops for your area. Number 2 would be stay out of the dealership unless you need to make better gross margin.
Oh,
right?
man. It's a good one.
So those would be the number 1 and number 2.
Yeah.
And probably number 3, and Trav, I'm open to debate on this, is don't get out over your skis on expansion outside of your management capabilities. So be great before you get big. So that doesn't mean we're against big and great, but you have to be great before you get big. That's why I always talk about those neighbors that farmed 1,800 acres for 40 years and they just poured money out the back of their truck every year because they did a great job on great land, on great growing great crops, and so and stayed in their lane. So, Trav, give me your top 3.
Well, I don't know if I have 3 specific ones. I think the more meetings I get into, it's not the same for all the farms, right? Like every different operation is going to need some tweaks one place or another. I think analyzing those top farms though, and looking at those, like the thing that I think is the biggest difference is timing. Those top farms nail their timing down all the time. They're, in the field when they need to be, seeding, combining, when they're spraying. Like there's so many factors to timing. We'll see farms time and time again where they spend the money on what needs to be there, but if the timing isn't there, it just doesn't quite work out. Now, Mother Nature can be cruel to us, but I think timing is like the biggest deciding factor in what our best farms are doing for sure.
Well, we're going to get to your question, Barry, but let's reveal this gross margin gap. Drum roll. Who got this right?
Oh, quite a few.
Well, we have an exceptional audience here too. You guys might have exceptional clients, but we have an exceptional audience here at Growing the Future. But yeah, by region, well, the flat fallback here is $125 an acre is the right answer, right?
Right.
And Manitoba's $91. Southeast and Central Saskatchewan's 152. North Saskatchewan is 145. Southwestern Saskatchewan's 101. And Central Alberta's 123.
Yeah, so that's just the gap between our best farms and the average. So we're seeing a significant gap there.
Average.
What's
the lowest? Like, it's the gap between the lowest.
Oh, that would be shocking. You wouldn't even want to see that.
Why can't we talk about that?
Because I don't like tracking that number.
Yeah.
Why not?
And no one wants to compare to that group.
No.
Realistically, but
it doesn't tell us anything.
When you put those numbers on the page, the big factor, and that's why I encourage, like, for us old dogs, it doesn't matter. And if someone was going to come to me, someone brought a client to Travis and said, I'm going to farm for another 2 crops or 1 crop. I want to really dive into the benchmark and really prove there's no sense, right? But if you got a farm that's going to go on for the next 20 years, you do $50 an acre for the next 20 years. I'm no accountant, but that seems like an awful big number at the end of a 20-year program. And That's where it's not important. It's absolutely a necessity that they stay at the top of their game. Otherwise, their neighbor beats them by $50 an acre. And we've all seen farms that started wealthy and there was nothing left at the end of the day. Do not think they're just all bad people. It's easy to get trapped in that swirl of I'm wealthy and it doesn't matter and I don't have to be quite as sharp and I don't have to be quite as good. But you extrapolate and put those differences over a long period of time. Boy, they're intergenerational altering numbers, Dan.
Fascinating. Barry Rutledge is saying, great that MNP is trying benchmarks again and think this is the third go at this. It is hard to take financials and balance them to risk management. This is a great year to show that no marketing plan will reward probably managers that are not the most profitable. Have you worked on timing of market and needs for cash flow?
Yeah, I think we're always working on the needs for cash flow. I feel like no farmer is not going to be wanting to look at that. I think the timing on the marketing, it's so tough. Like I try to relay that back to our marketing experts. I know Seed Grain Marketing does a really good job of that. We collaborate with them. Ryan Bonnet does a really good job of it with some of our clients there. There's so many other ones. Howie Mercer. There's so many different guys there. I don't try to be an expert on the marketing aspect. It's not my cup of tea. And when we're looking at gross revenue and we're trying to improve that, I say, like, there's different ways to improve that. Are you working with an agronomy partner or an agronomist in general on your farm to improve your yields? And then what are you doing on the marketing side? Do you think you're, doing a decent job of marketing, or do we need to, hire that out to get, that team built up to help you with the marketing?
And in the evolution of our database, for sure, we're going to start to dial in more individual crop sales to start to glean some more data for all of us on how much is marketing predictable? Is there people who are better at it than others? And we're just at the start of that journey, but I really appreciate that comment. One of the other things is that well, no, we'll leave it at that for now. Oh, that's what I was going to say. The risk management. Trav, talk about one of the clients that holds their own in the top 25, even though they've had some left hooks thrown by Mother Nature, and risk management really has just kept them in the game, punching above their weight.
Yeah, so I think it is a little bit tricky to balance it to financials. One of our goals is to actually separate out the revenue of, okay, what was actually crop revenue and what was actually insurance revenue, to see how much are these farms actually making based off of their risk management decisions, or is it based off of actually growing a massive crop when they're doing that? Now, that being said, we do have a couple guys in our benchmark that not in the best areas have seen some drought in the last 3, 4, 5 years, and they're still punching into our top 25 in the benchmark, which just blows my mind every year that they get in there, just because they've had such strong risk management decisions that maybe they got a little bit lucky. Maybe it was just great management. But they have managed to keep themselves in that top 25 from using risk management decisions and staying up to date in that. That being said, like, we try to go through with as many clients as we possibly can. I think risk management is one of the biggest things on farms. We can't control the weather, we can't control the markets, but actually looking at, okay, where are our numbers going into this year? We'll be going into 2027, and how can we mitigate that risk or set a financial floor for us that, when we're going into that year, we can try to grow the biggest crop that we can and market it the best we can, but know that those other insurance options are there to fall back on. So we do a lot of ag risk management projectors in March when we're looking at that.
Any more takeaways on the gross margin spread before we move on to production expense here, gentlemen? Or, it's a topic that could bear an entire series, I'm sure, but...
Yeah, I think if we ask the question there, then we can chat on why that is.
The production expense gap. What is the production expense difference per acre between the benchmark farms and the average farm? Again, nobody wants to talk about the worst. I guess the worst farms maybe isn't a good data set, or But is it $0 per acre, $7, $25, or $50 here?
And just to make it more confusing for our friends on the call or on the webinar, I would have got this one wrong had Trav tested
Yeah.
me. So just
Yeah.
to make sure everyone knows that this information is learning for all of us.
Right. Nobody, everybody's getting a 13th place ribbon today, no matter what you said. But it is for 2026. We're all getting a ribbon. Why is it shocking? I guess why, or why would you get it wrong, Dean?
Well, I don't want to tell because then it'll skew their answers.
Did we just wait one more minute in silence? Then you think? Or?
Well, silence isn't a specialty for Dan Aberhart and Dean Klippenstine. So I'll kill the minute with some entertaining. It's funny. We're gonna have a contest in our office. We're gonna have Sean Taylor, one of our farm management consultants, farms at the Richardson area. Travis Gerrard and myself have a contest to see who's the loudest person on the phone in the office. We haven't organized that yet, but you're an audio guy, Dan. You might be able to help us measure who's the loudest in the office.
Well, funny note, because here I am yelling out the intro to this show, and there's somebody at the door, and I think they could hear me making this grand speech, and they knew I was in there, so they rang the doorbell, and I just ignored them because I'm coming in hot on YouTube Live and Zoom Live, and about 50 people, waiting on every word I'm saying, and then they start banging, but I just succeeded in ignoring them, like lots of people in my life. Should we reveal this here?
Yeah, let's get it going.
Share the results. All right. So
interesting.
4% said $0 per acre. 4% said $7 per acre. 46% said $25 per acre. And 46% said $50 per acre. What is the answer?
Yeah, so the right answer there is actually $7 per acre. So what we're seeing is our best farms are not necessarily spending that much more on their inputs to get that much more out of it. So what we're seeing is those benchmark to average in gross revenue. It's about benchmark to average in gross revenue. It's quite a bit bigger number, but when we see the production expenses, they're actually very close to being average. $7 in some regions, it's actually quite a bit less. Like we see it between $2 and $3 an acre differences. But what they're doing is they're just every dollar that those top farms are putting into their operation, they're getting that much more out of it. Now, the more we look at this, the harder it does. It creates another rabbit hole, right? So are these top farms getting a better price on their inputs? Are they buying it at the right times? Is that coming back down to working capital, being able to buy it at the right time, or buying it at a better time than other farms that maybe don't have that flexibility to buy it earlier on? Those are all the things that we're trying to go down and find now, but it's created a lot more questions for us.
And I want to make sure I squash again the concept of everyone thinking that all the big farms have lots more cash than the little farms. There is no correlation between acre size. And I talked about it yesterday. If you had an extreme, if you had a would you rather have the profit on a 4,000 acre corn farm in Iowa or the profit on a 50,000 acre real tough scrubland in Montana, right? You'd rather have, not saying there's some good land parcels in Montana, but you'd way rather have the profit on a 4,000 acre farm in Iowa as two extremes. But so do not confuse Travis's that they're buying and getting cheaper deal based on massive volumes, because these are not massive farms.
Well, if you were in Montana, you'd be competing with the Dutton Ranch. And I don't know if you'd want to be doing that given their tactics. Labor, power, and machinery. We got 14 minutes left. Should we go there?
I think
or
so.
anything left on... that's shocking, cost of production. Because you'd think, inputs in...
Production expenses.
Production expenses, yeah. But yeah, anything more that you wanted to share? Any questions on production expenses on there?
Well,
that was interesting. How come you said it yourself, you wouldn't get that, but Just goes to show, I guess, the misconception. So if you don't know this information, then maybe you're barking up the wrong tree a bit.
Well, and what I think in the evolution in this evolution that we're going down, we being the industry, not we being MNP or Travis and I and you,
Sure,
Dan,
sure. Yeah.
is then what we're going to start is we're going to start seeing gross margin by field, and then we're going to go to the utopian gross margin by field, by zone in the field. And I think those numbers are going to be shocking. My buddy Shay Furster, and him and I always bust each other's chops because Regina hates Saskatoon and Saskatoon hates Regina.
Fair.
And so, but Shay, I love Shay's line. He said him and Mike did a project up in North Sask, and they said there was a whole bunch of farms that if they took their bottom 3 fields and got their gross margin up to the level of their average fields, it would be a new half ton every year.
Yeah.
Of profit.
That's what I want is a Denali. Get a Denali.
Like
I want to go to the airport in a Denali.
Yes, and so every year you'd get a new one. Mm-hmm. With just bringing your bottom 3 fields up to the average gross margin of your other fields, and so that's going to just be a whole bunch of more pursuit and information that's going to be exciting for the industry to improve, and that we always knew was there, right? Our grandpas always said, well, this back 30 acres is always our best producing, and this one chunk is pretty salinity, lots of salinity, and it doesn't. But you can see how drastic these gross margin differences are. It's exciting.
Well, I want to launch this third metric here, and hopefully this is instructive, folks. Labor, power, machinery. We were talking about the first person that might have ever said it. Put those words together, Dean. You said maybe it was Jonathan Small.
Jonathan Small. I call him the godfather of farm management consulting, and kind of kickstarted MNP into that project.
I was going to put a quarter in the jar every time you guys used it today. It used to be a drinking game. Now when you're old, you put it away in your RSP, I guess, or whatever, a quarter per. But it says, what is your farm's labor, power, and machinery cost per acre? Is it under 150, 150 to 74, 174, 175 to 199, 200 to 224, 225 or more? And what should your LPM target be? While they're answering that, though, and I wanted to fill this super awkward silence because it's my job. I get paid not to keep talking. Harry Siemens is saying, how many farmers benchmarking? And then Dean, you were teasing there's levels of benchmarking, but Travis, take this one. How many farmers? So you said 1,500. How many? 5,000 farms or 5,000 acres or greater. That's not the metric. In Western Canada, there's 50,000 farms. They could all benchmark. So 15. That's.
Yeah, there's no limitation to it. I think, like Dean said, it's hard to compare. You got to have comparable farms. We can't throw in a feedlot or a dairy into our grain benchmark. I mean, we do have a dairy benchmark. It's a whole different conversation. We have, one day we'll probably have a livestock benchmark or a cattle benchmark. It's just harder. But yeah, any size of operation, any region now, we basically have all the regions covered across the prairies, and we can go into different acre sizes. At the very worst, you get a 5-year graph of looking at your, it's one thing to look at your financials, but to actually throw it on the benchmark and actually see where these lines are trending, we've picked up on so many errors. Nobody's trying to make mistakes, but when you actually see it on the benchmark and you see it on a graph, it does stand out like a sore thumb when numbers are going either way up or way down. It's well, that's not right. What did we miss in this year, or what went on in that year? And just gives you a better understanding of your overall operation and business.
If I could chime in on Harry's question, I think part of it is that we don't see near enough people really engaging to say, how do I get better? Right? Even though lots of our clients are in the benchmark and they get the report, they really don't engage with it to strive to improve. But just to give it a bit of a perspective, our best guess as far as acres under advisement, I'll call it, is MNP would not be 20% market share, right? So everyone thinks we're this giant behemoth and that we control it, and we have every big farm, and everyone's a client of MNP. We're not 20% market share in Saskatchewan, where we're the biggest by far and away and our highest concentration. So not near enough people are benchmarking and utilizing this tool to help make themselves better. Harry.
Great questions, great answers. That could have been a poll in itself. I think the opportunity is the unbenchmarked acre. So we've got some numbers here. What are you guys seeing now? What are the actual numbers? Why is this labor, power, machinery the line you have the most control over? Are these folks getting it right?
I think, yeah, I guess I can talk to this. So there is no one right answer here. Like, I can't give a general what should your LPM be, and this is why I like the poll, and I can kind of read off some different areas here. LPM is what we think probably you have the most control over in the farm, and the fact that your farm can manage this cost the best, or this area the best. The problem is it's kind of like a puppet where you pull one string and all of a sudden a different one's moving, and you have to really play the part of making sure that, as you increase, machines, how are we increasing people, or what's it doing to our repairs? There's so many different factors that once you pull one string, it's going to affect another. There's going to be a bottleneck here. How do we uncover that? So it is a very tough category to manage, and it really comes down to a mindset. I mean, Dean's talked about this, and to be honest, I didn't really believe him at the beginning, but I've seen it come to fruition on a couple farms now, where if you just add extra acres to your LPM, we think that all of a sudden that LPM can come down, when that's really not always the case. It's more of a mindset. Those farms that are going to run lean and they're going to run on a razor thin margin of, hey, we got this many days to get harvest done, and we're going to get it done in those days, and we're going to run super efficient. If you have a farm that always has what happens if, we get a late fall or we get a late spring and we have lots of rain, we need that extra piece of equipment, we need that extra drill, or we need that extra tractor. Those people, no matter if they're 5,000 acres or they're 10,000 acres, that mindset is still going to be the same. So you can move them up to 8,000 acres, and it might thin out their LPM a little bit for that time frame. But eventually that mindset's just going to come back, and they're going to over-equip themselves for those acres. So it's really a mindset, and how do we actually, push out of that, or get the right amount of equipment and the right pieces in place there.
If you summed it up, the key is that you only add labor, you only add machines if they give you improvement to your gross margin. Because if it doesn't, there's no sense in adding that machine, right? So, Trav, one anecdotal thing that is not intuitive. Talk about the relationship between new machinery and repairs and maintenance.
Yeah, so actually, I've seen a couple different regions now. I've looked at this where we're trying to find if there's a correlation between increasing amortization, and then hopefully as we increase our amortization, that we actually see repairs go down. And we've actually done this a couple of years now, and we don't actually see any correlation there. As our amortization increases, so amortization just being your depreciation on your equipment, as that number increases, our repairs actually stay completely flat. There is no correlation that as soon as we get new equipment, it still breaks down and we still have to pay repairs on that. A lot of people don't believe that, but that's just the numbers that we have. We've done it on a 5-year average. We've done it on current year. As your amortization increases, we do not see those repairs decrease.
Go ahead.
Can I make a comment? Dan?
You give permission, yeah.
Trav, everyone has rose-colored glasses who's filled in that checklist, who filled in that poll. What's our average labor power machinery and our benchmark for the 2025?
Yeah, the average is very tight, right? So this is another one where it's like, I don't even like going based off of the accounting regions, but I'll give you guys what the labor power machinery benchmark numbers are. So in Alberta, it's $219 an acre. It's pretty high. Manitoba, they're sitting at $207 an acre. North Sask, they're at 175. South Sask, they're at 166, and then over in Cyprus, they're at $135 an acre. Now, it's so hard to give what that number should be. And remember, like, we have this down to the risk area, we have this down to the RM, and all those are drastically different. So depending on what area you're in, this number is going to change a little bit, but at least it gives you a little bit of a target.
No. But for those folks on the poll, that if you're not in Southwest Saskatchewan, Swift Current, and South Region, you're lying to yourself in your labor power machinery. It's higher than that.
What do you mean? Like the benchmark is it's
well, because everyone who filled in the poll thinks they're below 150.
Sorry, I can't see the.
I took the poll down.
Dan, put that poll up.
Share through. Could you guys share results?
Yeah, there's no way 50% of 55% or 60% of our people are below 175.
Yeah.
There's a couple honest people there, 200 to 224.
Yeah, that's good.
People.
Well,
Stop
I think
lying to yourself, folks.
I think a big part of it is just making sure that you're comparing apples to apples. That's one of the biggest things with benchmarking is making sure that, you know, when I talk to my buddies and all of a sudden we're saying different numbers, well, are we even comparing the same thing? Do you have fuel costs in there? Do you have your principal payments in there when I'm comparing amortization, or what are you actually comparing against? So that'll be a big difference too, is just making sure that you're using the same numbers to be comparable, because that's the coffee room chat. You want to be comparable when you're actually looking at these numbers.
Barry Rutledge says he hates the amortization numbers. They do not relate to the cost of acquisition replacement. A lot of farms rely on the used market because the true depreciation of new has skyrocketed.
So sorry, it sounds like Barry's arguing with himself. Say that again, Dan.
Hate the amortization numbers. They do not relate to the cost of acquisition replacement. A lot of farms rely on the used market because the true depreciation of new has skyrocketed.
Well, but then when you buy lower priced used machinery, it will be amortized at a less amount than new machinery. So I know amortization is not perfect, but the alternative is we need to take amortization out and put CapEx in, because for sure machines cost money. And so while it's not a science, it's our best tool to approximate the wear and tear on our machines. And so for sure it doesn't affect it. It's affected by replacement cost. But when it's all said and done, if you have a farm, if you look at a farm for 20 years, they have high labor power machinery or high amortization, and their neighbor who has lower amortization, and they have the same farm otherwise, there will be a lot more money in the bank on the one that has lower amortization. Full stop.
Can you and Barry have a black coffee and an apple pie together over this? You guys want to talk about this?
He absolutely, I would love to have that discussion, because he's not wrong. It's not a perfect tool.
Barry, are you in?
And if it had to be a cold beer on my deck at the lake, Barry, that'd be okay too.
Barry, the best offer you got so far today. Do you want to see? Barry says he loves beer. Do you want to see where your numbers land against farms in your region? Do you want to have earth-shattering insights? Do you want to get better through benchmarking because two farms in the same area are both growing canola? One's at $671 an acre in gross margin. The other one's at $160. The acreage didn't tell you which, but the numbers can. So before this week is over, find your gross margin per acre. If you can't find it, ask the person who prepared your financial statements. That's the first number. If you want to see where that number sits against comparable farms in your own area, hey, ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. MNP's live. They got, you can contact them a myriad of ways. Travis, Dean, proud of you guys. You guys are doing awesome work. I was so excited when I saw this. I was in the front row, Travis. Remember that?
I had to call you out.
I was leaning in. You called me out a bit, but that's your job. Why you make the big bucks. Yeah, we got lots of people here who want to, like, really, If you don't want to know this, wow, maybe we need to benchmark that. This Thursday, we're coming in hot with the Convergence Conference 2027. Dean, I think you got some prior commitments there, so you would, you know, I don't want to say it, but I'm pretty hurt. But Travis, you're going to be there. MNP is a big. You can talk to the MNP people there. They're there. They're on the stage. They're in the breakout rooms there by the water cooler. Talk to them there, Barry. Come to Convergence. We're going to talk about it. It's going to be very exciting. Go to convergence.ag. And, of course, you can get a hold of Dean at the lake for a free beer and amazing conversation. Extremely quotable. Churchill level of quotable here. And, of course, Travis is up and coming as well. So it's fun to see everybody that really wants to learn. So thanks for coming out today. Nobody in this room got ranked today. We gave you a mirror. You just, what you do with it, what you see in it, that's yours. That's yours to look in the mirror today with the benchmarking. Get ready for the third in the series. I mean, what secrets will be unlocked at that level of the inner sanctum of MNP benchmarking with Mike Pommier when we get down to the Acre? It's going to be incredible. I went to France with Mike Pommier, and it was amazing. So he's a great guy, doing great things in the world there. Any final words, Dean?
No, that was great. And remember, folks, it's like a hockey coach. The hockey coach doesn't tell you the 75 things you're doing right. They tell you the 3 you can improve. So just remember that. Like, we're just there to yell at you for the 3 areas where you improve. And Connor McDavid has a skating coach. So clearly it's important. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. The best always get better. And you guys are the best in the business. Travis, any final words?
Yeah, I think just understanding benchmark, like it's not there to make anybody feel bad. It's there to help your operation and understand your numbers and know how you stack up to other people. It'll give you a better way of looking at your operation. And then I guess to end it, like there's not one silver bullet to any of this. We see our top farms, what they're doing is it's the 20 small things that other farms don't think matter, that they're just nailing time and time again, that stacks up and it just compounds. So it's all the small things that you can do right. And once you nail those, things will start shaping around.
And the best will only continue to get better through benchmarking and working with fantastic folks like yourselves, which is fun. Thank you. Everybody, I hope you got great value out of it. And we'll see you on the funny pages on Thursday at convergence.ag launch.